Hey friends, it's David with Remnant Homestead. Some sad news here on the homestead. We lost a couple of ducks to a bald eagle, and it's no surprise to lose animals to predators on a homestead. These just happened to be my daughter's 4-H project, so it was kind of a added blow in that regard. But I wanted to talk about that, about predators, because I've had an inordinate amount of problems with predators out here. We've got plenty of raccoons, coyotes, bald eagles, red-tailed hawks. We've got fox, a little bit of everything. So it's a constant battle. I've actually lost flocks of birds to raccoons, and I honestly didn't think that it was raccoons I was losing them to. I figured it had to be a coyote to lose so many in one night, and I had no clue how bad of an infestation we had with raccoons when I moved here. But I had heard that the previous owners of this farm used to feed the raccoons dog food deliberately. So when I took up predator hunting, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into, but on average, I was killing anywhere from 19 to 32 raccoons a year. Well, a season, we'll say. So anywhere from about May till about November, there would be, 18, 19 to 32, 35 raccoons I would kill during those months. And that went on for years. It's just a steady stream of raccoons. And I had a neighbor who's a farmer and lived around here, but he's been around the block a time or two. And I was telling him about, my issues with the raccoons, and we would also seem to get some pests. Everybody gets stink bugs, everybody gets the lady beetles and things like that, but we would get like wolf spiders on the back of the house that would cover the whole house. I'd taken pictures of it. I might see if I can find them and put them in here. I don't know if I'm still going to, it's on an old phone, so I don't know if I'll be able to find them, but the whole house, the whole back of the house was literally covered in wolf spiders. It was like something out of a horror film. And it was pretty impressive to me. I was like, we get a plague of some kind of pest every year. That went on for years. And it's subsided with the wolf spiders. Was a kind of a one-time thing. That was pretty impressive. The lady beetles aren't that bad. And then the stink bugs are getting better all the time. But you kind of get these weird plagues of these insects. And I certainly had plagues of predators. The raccoons were no joke. Lost a lot of animals. They were pets, losing cats. And, it's a terrible thing. And so this farmer, who's a neighbor of mine, in talking about this with him, he told me, he said, well, the reason why you have such a problem there is because you're right on a wood line, as you can see. And he said something, he gave me a percentage, I don't want to misquote it and be wrong, but he said X percentage of all life lives on a wood line. And I do believe that's true. It's a very active area. Unfortunately, it's where most poison ivy grows. It's where a lot of, the critters live. So my property is practically a deer, breeding ground. They bed down in a handful of places right on my property and then kind of linger off onto other properties around me from here. So it's also kind of a nursery. Like, we have a lot of does drop fawns on this property. I've witnessed no fewer than 4 births just looking out my window. So it definitely seems to be where all the action is. And I had to take up predator hunting almost out of necessity. You know, when you live in the country, like, what are you going to do? Call animal control? Like, you know, but the problem was so bad between pet rabbits and, you know, the ducks, chickens, you name it. They'll go after anything. And we get skunks in the coop periodically, and, you know, you have to deal with all of that. But only one coyote I ever had on the property was a problem. And I had a British Guernsey buckling shipped out here from Idaho. And it was in the wee hours of the morning that it finally got here. That poor carrier, he had quite a journey, if I remember correctly. But he got here in the wee hours of the morning. We unloaded, and that little buckling was just carrying on out in the pasture, and it got the attention of a coyote. Only time I've had a coyote, you know, kind of come around the animals. But it's a real thing out here. So I'm just curious, you know, for people who do have a predator issue, it seems funny because you talk to some homesteaders and they're like, yeah, I got a dog, and, you know, I don't have any problems because I've got a dog. So no amount of dogs is going to keep the army of predators out around here away for very long. So unless you've got everything, unless your dog is just free roaming all over the place all the time, you got like a whole army of watchdogs, I don't think, you know, having some dogs is going to curb the kind of problem I've got, you know, friends in Virginia that have a pretty decent sized farm, and, you know, they've got, you know, a couple of Great Pyrenees. They still get coons and possums and everything messing with their animals. And so, you know, I do think being on the edge of a wood line is a factor in that predator issue. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, I'm not saying this like it's a negative. It's just something to be conscious of. And I'm just kind of curious if other folks who have predator issues on their property, if you also live on a wood line. So love to hear your feedback. Comment below. God bless y'all.